first growing, well, very small generation of middle-class Mexican-American advocates fought back. And this was an example of what some scholars have called the other white race strategy, of which Mexican-Americans for a large chunk of the 20th century, the advocates, sought to be claimed as white because all rights were conferred on you only if you were white. And so the longest time, Mexican-American advocates sought for this whiteness. And the example of going to your congressman and saying, "What, they took us out of the white category, put us back." That was a poignant moment. We know that this other white strategy had its problems. We know the famous case in the 1950s in which a Mexican-American had been convicted of murder, and his lawyer said, well, there was not one Mexican-American on the jury. This was not a jury of his peers. And the judge said, well, Mexicans are white and the jury's all white, so what's your problem? Clearly an imperfect strategy. So by the 1950s, Mexican-American advocates began consciously and subconsciously sort of to adopt the increasingly successful strategies of African Americans. And they then had to toe this very delicate line of trying to be designated sufficiently enough minorities to take advantage of Brown versus Board of Education and protections for minorities without losing their whiteness. So they played this dance for a little bit. But then with the advent of clearly race-based answers to social problems, the Voting Rights Act, affirmative action, Mexican Americans by the late 60s and early 70s said, we're people of color too. Overnight, Mexican American advocates had fought to be white. The last 20th century, the last part of the 20th century, hey, we're people of color, what are you talking about? I say this jokingly, and I've gotten some horrible emails, but I don't say this to disparage Mexican Americans. I think it's quite brilliant myself. Because it's the system that's stupid. And your ability, can you really blame a person for trying to manipulate a system that's really done you no good?